It's just very messed up. Oh, yay, people. Michelle. I'm just saying hi. I'm not going to talk. I know, because we're going to watch a video. We are? But we're not doing, I'm not going to talk about the AI today. I'm sorry. I have to be in my zone. Plus, I'm mad at AI right now. It's going to work me out of a job. See, you don't come to me anymore because you don't need me. Just saying like it is. I know, but you know. All right.
respect for the performers, please silence all electronic devices, including cell phones. If you need to leave or exit the hall after the performance has begun, please do so during an applause between pieces as a courtesy to the performers and audience. Thank you for your cooperation and enjoy the performance.
Can you guys hear me? All right, well, I'm glad we all made it safely and in one piece. Welcome to my fourth talk of the year. So this one we're going to talk, obviously, about performing. Performing mindset, why do we do it? Who here likes performing? I can be honest. Snap, yeah. I'm actually surprised and I'm really happy about that. Great. Well, for the newbies and the people that don't feel quite like they like it, this is for you. All right. So I want to start out with, okay, who knows about the whole, do you guys know Timothy Chalamet? Yeah. Okay, so you know about what he said that kind of made people in our world really mad, right? Who doesn't know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
Wow, okay, so Timothy Chalamet, I don't know what the context was, I don't know if it was in an interview, but he basically made a comment that said he's glad that he's not in a field like opera or ballet where nobody cares anymore about the art field. Yeah. So like the Metropolitan Opera in New York came up with a response. I mean, it got quite a response, maybe too big a response than it deserved. But I was watching this video of my new favorite comedian, Josh Johnson. Who knows Josh Johnson's stuff? He's amazing. And he has a reaction that I think we all need to hear, and it will set up my whole point about performing. So here we go. This is just a clip, and hopefully the Wi-Fi works decent enough.
But I understand why the Met did it, because here's the thing. If you are in any creative field right now that in any way is struggling, you know, it's usually money that we count as the struggle. More often than not, it's like, this thing isn't making money, so it must be struggling. And I think that sometimes we do the same thing that I at least think Timothy was doing when he said that, which is we confuse commerce with creativity. You know, we look at this exchange of artists giving us their work and us returning it with our attention, and we look at it in a way that I don't think is helpful to art at all. Just ask an artist. And what happens is, if you're not making a ton of money, you must not be good at art, is the idea. And if you make a bunch of money, you must be the best at art, which everyone knows is not true. And so I think that when you talk about this thing is dying or nobody cares about it anymore, it's like, I think you're only speaking on money. And so if something doesn't yield a lot of money, in the back of our minds, it's not great art. Because if it was great art, more people would engage with it, give more of their dollars to it. It would just be more substantial, you know? But that's not why you do art. I know maybe for some people it is, but it shouldn't be. That's not what makes art. Imagine if your kid came to you and said, when I grow up, I want to make money. I'm talking stacks. I'm a paint. Oh, sweetie. I have terrible news for you about the art world. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say that artists don't make money and that people don't care about art that doesn't end up making money. We have to do like an uncoupling of art and money, of art and popularity. Real art, the things that move you, they move you. And sometimes they happen to move other people. But whether they do or not, that shouldn't determine whether we count them as art. You see a painting and you're moved, that's art to you. You hear a song and you're moved, that's art to you. It shouldn't matter how many streams it has. It shouldn't matter if the person that made it is on the charts. The song moved you. Art is so subjective, not just in its value, but also in like its meaning to the individual, that you will hear a song that moves you more than anything has ever moved you in your life. And you might even be blessed enough to one day meet the person who wrote that song and get to tell them what that song meant to you and how you could hear the pain that they had in the relationship that they were longing for in the song, and you came across that song in a time in your life when you were also hurting deeply. Maybe you lost someone, maybe it was a loved one, or maybe you lost love. Maybe someone broke up with you, and you just could not put it into words, even in the quiet of your own mind. You couldn't find the words, and you heard that song, and it was everything that you had ever wanted to say to yourself about what you were going through. And you get to tell them that. And then maybe they say, oh, wow, I'm so glad it moved you. That song was about heroin. Because that's part of art. Part of art is making it and then letting it go, letting it be whatever it is to other people, you know? You spend a lot of time, especially when you begin as an artist, making bad art. Now, this bad art, maybe it's bad because it's not well communicated. Maybe it's bad, someone would say, because it's not making any money and no one knows who you are yet. Or maybe it's just bad in your own opinion based on the skills that you build off the skills you didn't have when you first did the art. Right? So it takes a long time. And then to have your art recognized is a tremendously powerful thing. To get an award for your art means so much, because as artists, no matter what you do, I don't know if you act, if you write, whether it's poetry, novels, whatever you do, whatever artistic thing it is that you do, you are on your own in this endeavor. Even when you're with a group, your contribution comes from you. You are on your own as you do it. And because you're on your own, you're just sometimes what feels like floating in a void. Is this good? Is this worth it? Should I share it? All these things that eat away at your artistic endeavor. An award sometimes is the validation that you need to keep going, and it shouldn't be, but sometimes it is. It's nice when someone or a group of people or everybody is like, wow, that's art. You killed it. And maybe that's why Timothée Chalamet wants an Oscar so bad.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. There are so many good points in that video, in my mind. And that's how I want to start off the talk. Because, you know, those questions of, is it worth it to perform? Is it worth it to be a musician if you're not going to make money, or if you're not going to perform on the stage of Carnegie Hall, or you just don't know. You don't know where it's going to end up. My answer to you, and what I hope most about what you walk away with today, is that, oh yes, it is very worth it for a lot of reasons. So even though performing is not easy, what we do as musicians by sharing our art is incredibly important. And I would even say, in times like we're experiencing right now, where there's a lot of kind of animosity, it's even more important. So, yeah, that's why I perform. I perform because I've performed for a long time, right? And I have seen how it has touched people in various ways. Sometimes it's in a profound way. Sometimes it might be somebody that says to me, and I have had this happen, I was going to end my life, and I decided not to. It just gave me a little bit of hope. And then there's some that are just, I was having a bummer of a day, and that lifted my spirits, whatever. It doesn't matter exactly how powerful the person's reaction, the audience's reaction is. The fact that it moves people, that is really powerful and important, and we need that. To me, it's magical. And as I've gone through my many years of getting better and better at performing, and realizing what performing is really all about, it has become more and more a part of my life and something I crave, because it brings me together with people. It's awesome when you do it. I just said that I haven't always enjoyed performing. All right, I was very much like a lot of you. When I first came to Virginia, I was, I don't know how old, can't even begin to tell you. But I had a 1-year-old child, and I hadn't been doing music very much since I had graduated from college. I got married. I did all the thing a woman is supposed to do. I got married, had a kid, supported my husband in his job. And I started working at Virginia Tech as a collaborative pianist. I wasn't as much like a coach. At Virginia Tech, I had to just quietly do my work, which I loved. But because my husband was on faculty at Virginia Tech as a voice teacher, it was a little dicey. I felt like I had to perform at a certain level to not jeopardize his job. Now, is that right? No, not really, but that's the way it was. And so every time I went up to perform with a student at Virginia Tech, I was terrified. I was worried about all the reactions of my husband's colleagues in the music department. Are they going to approve of me? You know, all that type of stuff. It crippled me. And that lasted for about 4 or 5 years. And then my husband was denied tenure at Virginia Tech. It was a very not pleasant scene. When you're denied tenure, it can be crushing, which it was in my husband's case. So at that point, I had a decision to make. Do I continue to work at Virginia Tech amongst people that I knew did not like my husband and didn't believe in him? So I decided, because of money, and because I loved what I did, and because I kind of wanted to stick it to some people, I decided to continue. But I decided I would never care again about what any of those faculty members thought. I shifted my focus from, am I going to prove myself adequately, to what can I do for these students with whom I'm playing? That is my focus. And my focus is loving the music that I'm playing and communicating to the audience. And I will never forget, it was maybe the second or third performance after I made that mind shift, that the guy that was largely responsible for denying my husband tenure came up to me. He was very critical of everybody. And he said, he was a pianist too, and he said, "What's happened to you?" And I was very nervous, like, oh God, okay, what have I done? He said, "I have never heard you play this well. It's like you're a different musician." And you know what? I was a different musician. And I had a phone call coming in. I was a very different musician because I had shifted and understood what the value of performance is all about and what the value of music making is. And I've never looked back, all right? Does that mean I don't want to do a good job? No. In fact, because I'm trying to satisfy myself more and my audience, I think I'm working even harder as a musician. And I'm like 50, whatever I am, and I am still working my butt off to be better and better of a musician. All right? So, and I don't know that I could have gotten to this place had I not just kept performing and performing and performing and kept working on the art of performing. It's different than just the art of practicing. You need to get better at practicing to be a good performer. But anyway. So, you know, performing has the power to heal in lots of ways. And I think of my dear friend, who is now hopefully a friend of yours to some of you, my friend Nick. So I'm going to talk behind his back here a little bit. You know, he had a huge career for much of his life. He kind of did a huge career break, huge career. When I started talking to him in 2020, he had not been playing piano for a very long time. He had fallen kind of off the face of the earth. And finally he got back to me, got back in touch with me. And he had always been like my hero, my Bach hero, my piano hero. I loved his recordings. And I only knew him sort of at a low level on Twitter. Big deal, right? But he messaged me at the beginning of the pandemic, and he said, "Would you like to start talking about music together?" I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? Why?" I said, "I am little Erica in Southwest Virginia. Do you even know like where I live? That I live and work with students just in a lovely little college?" He said, that's why I want to talk to you. I'm tired of talking to these professionals in England, and I've been blacklisted in England because I have Tourette's. And I just want to see if we get along. So clearly you know whether or not we got along. But, you know, his residence here at Radford, like before he came here, he would do some judging now and then in Europe. But he mostly did concerts and recordings. But he has fallen in love with working with all of you. And before he came and started doing this residency here, he was kind of languishing in Portugal, where he lives. He wasn't doing music, except, you know, not even performing. There were no opportunities for him in Portugal. But the act of doing music with you, with talking about music with you, and performing with me, and performing with you, he said to me this last trip, as I was taking him to the airport, he said, you all have saved my life. All right? So, even people that are amazing musicians can find performing hard and difficult. And he actually doesn't really like performing. But he's finding his place to perform here too. And he's so enjoying performing with you all, I think more than he ever did performing solo on the stage with orchestras and blah, blah, blah. It stops his Tourette's. It gives him a purpose to living. Music and performing is an amazing thing. So, should only the best of the best perform? No, absolutely not. I think all of us can share. And that's what I want to get across to you, is that I don't care if any of you don't go and perform in the biggest halls in the world. I couldn't care less. If you do, I will be your biggest cheerleader, and I will be so incredibly proud of you. But what I do want is for as many of you as possible to go out to whatever level you feel comfortable and to keep sharing your music, whatever you do, sing, play an instrument. I want you to go out and I want you to perform. Perform in local theater groups, perform in pit orchestras, whatever. Because we need more people performing live music, all right? And performing at different levels can make it a lot more palatable to be out there performing. So there you go. All right, so how do we get more comfortable with performing? That's the next question. If you look in your program, I have a list, and I'm not going to talk through everything that's in here, because I don't have time. But I first want to talk about some reality checks about performing. A lot of these, if you've performed with me, you will recognize them, but it's always good to hear things more than once, right? So the first thing here, performances are not a proving ground for what you're capable of, okay? It's not a proving ground. Don't go onto the stage thinking you have to prove yourself to anybody. It's not helpful. And then the minute you make a mistake, or who knows, you crack a note, then you can start having these negative tapes that get you sidetracked from what's most important, which is, what's the most important thing when you perform? Anybody? What is that? Having fun. Having fun? Absolutely. What else? Yeah. Air is very handy when you're blowing into an instrument, yeah. But also just the music, right? You need air to have good music making. Okay, another thing is a flawless performance is not a reality. This surprises me that people don't get this concept very much. And I think some of it's because it's changed a little bit, but I would say 20 years ago when recordings, like records and CDs, engineered recordings were the things we listened to. Especially back then, there was this concept because we got these perfect recordings that we would listen to. But those are completely fake and engineered. These days, we do have a lot of really bad recordings on Spotify, and actually that makes me kind of happy and on YouTube because it is a little bit more realistic. So you have like a nice little balance now, which is good but bad. But you know, with recordings that we listen to that are engineered, I don't know how many of you know actually how engineered some of those can be. And I've learned a lot about that from Nick. So he doesn't do it this way. He'll do complete takes in order to record, but that's kind of rare. So a lot of musicians will literally record like measure by measure. They'll do lots of tweaks. Joe is nodding his head. He has experience in the recording field. You know, you can sit there and auto correct intonation problems, all that stuff. They manipulate everything in those recordings. So I've gotten to the point where I don't like to listen to engineered recordings. I usually look for live performances of things because I just think it's healthier. So a flawless performance is not a reality. I don't know if I have ever given a note perfect performance. Ever. And I've been performing a heck of a lot. All right? So it just should not be your expectation. Third thing, audience members are not looking at your score, right? They have no clue if you're making a mistake. The only time they know you're making a mistake is if you show it in your face, in your body, if it affects the rest of your performance. So it's our job as performers to have this masterful way of just pretending like nothing went wrong. It was all as it should be. So just remember, the audience is not looking at music. Now I kind of joke because there's this old people's home up in Botetourt County that I play at a lot. I will never forget the first time I went up to perform there. I went to perform all of these Bach preludes and fugues. And I got there, I'm like, well, no one's gonna know these. I chose a book that nobody knows. And I get there to warm up. And there were three people had on their seats the Well-Tempered Clavier score sitting on their chairs. I was like, what are these old people doing with Bach scores? And are they going to be sitting there like marking all my mistakes? But I had already gone through the Virginia Tech thing, so I was like, what? If they want to sit there and be persnickety, that's their problem. Okay, next one. Even if somebody does realize you've made a mistake, they're not looking for a flawless performance either. Maybe. If they are looking for a flawless performance, again, they can just go somewhere else for that. They're not going to get it. But generally, audiences want to see you, they want to hear you, they want to hear the music. Another reality check, and this is a big one. The first performance of any piece that you perform, generally, it will never go the way, like it will always feel a little uncomfortable. Anybody relate to that? Yeah, like you've played it, you've done it for your teacher, you've done it with me, and it feels really great, and then you go to perform it for the first time, and things, it's like a reality weird thing. You're like, what? Have I done this before? Why did that mistake pop up? Just know that's a reality that happens, and it's okay. But what that tells me is that then you should be performing it again and again, because each time you're going to come at it in a much healthier way. Usually the second time I approach a piece, it's like night and day difference. I'm like, why was it so hard the first time? But I think as students, we don't get that opportunity. So just keep in mind, like you could have a second performance. Go home, perform it at your church. Go home, play it for your friends. Record it and put it on YouTube. Give yourself multiple performances of a piece so you can start to understand how you can get better and better at a piece, because it's almost never going to happen at that first performance. Okay. That leads to this. Performing gets easier by performing again and again and again. Not even just the same piece, but you'll start to see how you are as a performer, and then you start practicing how to deal with performance nerves and all of that jazz. Have to keep doing it to get better. Remember that performing is a gift to audiences. And know that most people that are in your audience think you have a heck of a lot of guts to get up and do what you're doing. That's kind of powerful and empowering. So enjoy that. I want to add a little thing right now, which is a little plug for our trio. I have a trio, the Alma Ensemble, and we're up in Roanoke. And we have thank you. We have a community concert series up in Roanoke. 4 times a year, we put on performances that involve students, amateurs, and professionals. And we put on a great show, all right? And it's a very low-key atmosphere. That's the whole point. We're very supportive of one another. Sometimes we put together chamber music groups using the people that are on the program. So sometimes you might be playing with a teacher, or we shake it up a lot. So if you're ever interested in joining us, that's a great place to get performance experience in a place where you're not going to have people you even know staring at you. All right? And our audiences are the best. They are so lovely. We have people that I don't know that come time and time again and donate to make this series possible. So it's there for you if you want it. And there's many in the auditorium who have already played with us, so you can let people know that you've done it, and it's not terrifying. All right. Let's see. Oh, another thing, I want to tell a little story here. So, even the pros, a lot of them don't like performing. Did you realize that? Yeah? No? You guys are so quiet today. Wake up. So my story I want to tell is, raise your hand if you know who Yo-Yo Ma is. Oh, good. Thank goodness. Okay. So he's an amazing cellist, right? And I admire him so much because he tries so many different things. He doesn't just stick in classical land. He's done a recording with Mark O'Connor doing bluegrass. He's done one with Bobby McFerrin. He's done a lot of Asian music, Silk Road stuff. But I want to tell you what he was like. I saw him the first time he broke out of his little classical box. So I had played cello for him when I was in high school at a master class, so I knew him. And he came back to San Francisco to do a performance with Bobby McFerrin. Do you all know who Bobby McFerrin is? Okay. He's really cool. He's a vocalist. He does all these crazy things with his voice. He can sing really high. He did the Don't Worry, Be Happy. Anyway, Bobby McFerrin had asked Yo-Yo to do a concert with him called Hush. This was before the album came out that they did together. And on that performance, Yo-Yo had to improvise. He had no music for some of the songs. So I was always at the Symphony Hall because I was in the orchestra there. And I was backstage for that concert, and I went back to go see him and just say hi. Because usually he's very low key. But for that concert, he was pacing the hallway outside of his dressing room. And he looked green. He truly looked green. And I went to him and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No, I am not okay." And I said, "Okay, well, what's going on?" And he said, "I have to go on the stage and I have to play without music. And I have to just make something up." And I was like, "But you're Yo-Yo. You should be able to do everything." I didn't actually say that, but I was thinking it. I was just like, so I'm really looking forward to it. He went out there. So, I was so amazed because he walked on stage, and I knew then he was terrified, but he did it. And he did it, of course, really, really well. And then he ended up kind of branching out and trying tons of different things. But to see somebody at that level terrified about performing was really important for me to see, and I will never forget it, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. So it's a journey we all have to take. There are also a lot of amazing musicians that have stepped away from music because they don't like to perform, and it's scary for them. So you're not alone, and it doesn't matter how good you are, performing can be daunting for us all. All right, so I know why you're here. You want the magic bullet tips, right? To solve all your performance woes. I don't know if I can do exactly that for you, Oh, one last thing, a reality check. You do not necessarily have to perform by memory. So I'm speaking largely to vocalists and pianists, guitarists, because here you're the only ones that have to memorize, right? And you do for school, there's a lot of value in that, but once you get out of here, please don't let memorizing prevent you from performing. It's not necessary. I'd rather you be performing with music than not performing at all. All right. So, all right. So after that, this next section in your program is tips for time leading up to performances. It's really important. We've talked about this in the practice talks. You have ways of approaching practicing, but you also need to practice performing. You need to practice the mindset for performing. You need to actually practice performing. So that's what I want to walk you through. How do we do that? For me, I usually say about 2 weeks before any performance is when I very intentionally take off my practice room hat for part of my sessions, not the whole time. I will still practice in a practice way, in a very careful way, but I will have times of my practice sessions where I take that hat off and put on my performing hat. You have to practice it if it's going to happen on stage. And what I do is I practice performing. I replace repetitions. I replace playing up to tempo all the time or trying to get things faster and faster. I remove the intensity and the loudness. And I try to change practicing from being chaotic to be very intentionally quiet, easy, in control, under tempo, and musical. The under tempo thing tends to get really people riled up. They're like, I can't, it's a fast piece, I have to play it fast. I challenge you to be able to play it under tempo. I was just in a professional situation where I asked another professional to do that with me, to play under tempo. And he looked at me and he said, I can't. I was like, okay, well, darn it. So let me show you a little bit what that looks like. And I wish I had Adagio here. Who's Adagio? You remember? My sloth. Very good. Okay. Oh, let's see if I can find what I'm looking for. Probably not. Oh, I know, photos. Okay, so, oh, and I have it on the screen. One sec. Oh, maybe I don't. Well, I'll show you the score, and I'll just have to do it by memory. Okay, this is a Schubert impromptu, and it's a piano piece, and it's pretty easy to follow because the right hand is the only fast thing. So it goes like the speed of light. It goes... Right? So a lot of people, right before a performance, this is what I'll always hear in the practice room. Right? It's just like chaotic and it's panicking and it's like, I'm never going to be able to play this piece fast enough and oh my God. But this is how I do this kind of practice. And again, I'm going to talk about Nick a lot because he's taught me so much. But we played a 2-piano version of this piece. And this is how literally we practiced it the whole time. It was like this. It is really, really meditative to do that. And when you do this for part of your practice time leading up to a performance, it helps you get into a zone where you're not panicking all the time. In the practice room, we're often panicking a lot, right? Or you can. Or criticizing yourself. But when you do this kind of practice, it's just peaceful. But I don't know if you could tell, but I was making sure that I knew exactly what I was doing with all the musical lines. And I wasn't doing the range of dynamics, but internally I was registering, oh, here I'm going to be loud, here I'm going to be soft. So because it's under tempo, I have time to think about all of that. When you're doing it with another musician as an ensemble, and I would encourage, like I saw Jessica and Kate's quartet recently at departmental, and my suggestion for you all was going to be to do it under tempo quietly together. You can hear so much more of how the pieces go together, how your parts interact. And you're also working as a group in a less stressful way once you get used to it. At first it takes some adjusting, but it can be really, really helpful. So that is something I want you all to consider doing in those weeks leading up to a performance. All right? I'm looking at my nice little list here. Okay. Then I also think you should spend more time practicing with a performing mindset. That's where you let go of your teacher's comments. I know Dr. Burnett is back there, sorry. But you have to let go of that, and it's time for you to accept your responsibility and your control of the piece that you're playing. All right? So spend a lot of time setting that aside, your desire for perfection, set aside your desire for doing it faster and faster. Just be happy with the tempo you've got, do it, and aim to be as musical as possible and as comfortable as possible. Yeah, so in a way, I already kind of showed you the different hats. Like if this is me with my practicing hat with that piece. Oh, it was a little messy there. Shoot. Okay, so now I'm going to put that away, and I'm just going to say, I don't care what happens. I'm just going to go for the mood of it. Right? So it's going to sound different to you. It should sound much better. All right. So that's another way of practicing. I'm going to skip some of these. This is something that's really good to do in the weeks leading up to a performance. You're going to do tempo checks. All right? And in an easy example, let's take that piece I just did for you. So, you know, when you have a piece, you often have different sections of the piece. And sometimes they oftentimes need to be the same tempo. So this part that's on the screen in B minor, that's the same tempo as the opening. So what I make sure I do is I actually usually start with the internal bit, like this one here, not the thing at the beginning, and I find the tempo I want it at. I don't remember it now, but you know what I just discovered is I played it probably too fast for you the first time when I was just showing off, right? Because if I did that, that might be too fast for it to have the musical intent that I want. I don't know, but you have to play around with that, and that's like, I call that playing in the sandbox of music. And that's what you should be doing those 2 weeks, in the weeks leading up to a performance. It gets you in a different mindset, all right? So that is the tempo thing. Another example of a tempo thing that I had to do recently, this is from a slow movement. Slow movements can be notoriously difficult to get a consistent tempo throughout the piece. Because as you see, like at the beginning, do you notice that the rhythm values are much slower? We've got eighth notes and quarter notes. And then when you get further down, we have sixteenths. And then when you get all the way to this section, you have sextuplets. So if I start the piece just at some tempo that I like the beginning at, I might end up really sorry by the time I get to the sextuplets. And I don't want different tempos. So the important thing is to be able to practice it juxtaposed like that so that you're not going to have that happen. So again, I usually start with the part that is the hardest in the middle first, choose a tempo, then I go back to the beginning to make sure it is consistent. So if you look at the bottom over there with the sextuplets, now look at the beginning. Then I'm going to jump to where those 16th notes are in the middle of that first page. So what happened when I just did that is I realized that that part I just played for you, I often play too slow. Because it's emotive and I love it, right? But I might not really want to do that because I play this with orchestra and they might not appreciate it. So that's an example of last week practicing. And it's kind of fun. The other thing I'd say with this point is if you're playing a fast piece, like that Schubert I did for you, at that point in the game, several weeks before the performance, let go of the desire to get it any faster. Stop. Because you're only going to be building in this feeling of it needs to be faster when you walk on a stage to perform. You need to give yourself time to be fine with the tempo you have and to live in it and to make that the most musical you can. And usually, speaking from experience, it'll be cleaner and better anyway at that little bit slower tempo. Plus when you go to perform, adrenaline will kick in. It's bound to go a little faster anyway. All right, so practice letting go of the expectation of doing it faster. All right, it just doesn't need to be. Okay, I'm gonna skip the next one. If there are sections that you're still having difficulty with, figure out sheets so that if it really isn't working the day of performance, you can still pull it off without beating yourself up for leaving things out, and you can still be musical. I just had this happen to me. I had to play a Mozart. I played a Mozart concerto with two other pianists. And the pianos, when we got there to rehearse the day before, they were the stiffest pianos I had ever encountered. So playing Mozart, which has to be sparkly and fast, was well nigh impossible. Okay? So I had to find sheets in order to be able for it to sound like Mozart, and that it could sound like me not struggling. All right? I also, in a recent performance, at the end of this whole concerto, I was playing with the orchestra. I think I have it on here. Oh, I don't. That's another thing I'll show you in a minute. Oh, here it is. So you see at the end of this whole concerto, after 25 minutes, I have to do these like wicked runs, right? I kept practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. And I thought I had it nailed, and then I got to the orchestra rehearsal, and I could not do it to save my life. I kept trying, and I had already rewritten it, but Nick and I spent like hours trying to figure out the best way to pull it off. So instead, I'll do it slowly. Let's see. If you look at that last line, oh no, it's not. Yeah, it is. So I'm not even really starting rhythmically in the right place. Oops. So I completely rewrote and redistributed everything. Now, do you think anybody's going to come and arrest me? No. And luckily the composer's like very dead. So they're not going to bug me. But my point about it was, look, she wasn't the greatest composer, or maybe it was because the pianos were different, whatever. I needed to find a way to make it as brilliant as possible and to know I could do it brilliantly without being scared. So we rewrote it. Now, the next time I go to perform the concerto, I'll keep trying to do it the way she wrote it, but I have to let go of my desire to do exactly like she wrote it and not beat myself up and say, oh, if only I were a better pianist, I could do it. No, don't play those games. Okay? So, but you need to start doing that a couple weeks before a performance so that you have the confidence to go out and pull something out of your pocket when you need to. All right? The next little point, we're running out of time. Make sure that you have rest spots in your pieces where you can reset. Jessica and I just worked on this the other day in one of her pieces where there's like no breath, or hardly, there's no rests for her. So we went through and we found ends of phrases, ends of sections, where I think, you might not necessarily think you have time, but you do. And so we practiced that into the piece. So find those spots where you can take a good breath, you can reset, so that it doesn't mess up the rest of your performance. On the day of performance, please resist going to all the most difficult passages and doing them over and over and over again. There's this mistaken notion, in my opinion, that if you just do it 50 times before you walk onto stage perfectly, that then it's going to go perfect on stage. It very rarely happens that way. And instead what happens, you walk onto stage and you have the expectation, well, I did it 50 times off stage perfectly, so of course it's going to go well here. And it never does, so don't do it. Please just don't do it. So either do it under tempo, quiet, calm, musically, or do something else. Before I perform a recital, I almost never perform the pieces on the recital to warm up. I play my favorite pieces. The pieces that make me connect with why I'm doing it in the first place. The pieces that help me explore the instrument and find all the lovely tones that that instrument can produce. I play different tempoed pieces so I can warm up. All that type of stuff. That can be a little scary for some people to do, so you might not want to do it, but that's what I do. And it helps so that when I walk on the stage, I have no idea what's going to happen that day with that music. It's like, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine how it's going to go. Okay, and then backstage, here are some things to think about. First of all, really check your breathing. There's lots of good ways you can breathe. There's the not circular breathing. What is it, like the square? Box breathing. There's all sorts of good ways to make sure that you're getting good breath in. There's, Dr. Bernardini teaches you breathe in and hold one nostril. I can't remember. It's like the nostril closing thing. That's what she does, and I've tried it, and it really is helpful. It helps your nerves helps to regulate your system. Because when you go up to perform, a lot of the symptoms that you have when you have to do public speaking or performing, it's the same symptoms you have when you are under fight or flight. All right? So you need to try to get everything back down again. All right? So you can do that. Try to keep your eyes more at eye level. Try not to look up. A lot of people, because they're trying to remember their piece, they'll look up. But that triggers and activates that practice room side of your brain. Like if I were to ask you to solve a mathematical problem, your eyes would shoot up into your because that's triggering that part of your brain. So try to keep your eyes at eye level. If you are shaking, if you are sweating, if you have weird symptoms, the worst thing you can do is tell yourself to stop. It's like saying, don't think of the pink elephant. How many people are thinking of a pink elephant right now? Hopefully it's really cute. So don't sit there backstage and say, stop shaking, stop shaking. Just know it's part of the process. Maybe instead, listen, hear the music in your head. Focus on finding what tempos you want to do. Focus on something that has to do with the music. So those are some of my Best piece of advice. I know the girls in my trio, they do this stance. I don't know what it's like, the superwoman stance or something. They go like this. They say that really helps them. Okay, fine. That's cool. Do yoga if you need to. And then the last little bit I will add that isn't in there, because I forgot. In those weeks before you perform, I'd encourage you to memorize some of those, work at memorizing some of those harder passages that you have. So that you can practice it with your eyes closed, so you can practice it and let go more easily. If you're staring at the music, it triggers the wrong kind of part of your brain that won't let you access the musicality behind that hard passage. So that's another good thing to do. Just memorize little bits. You don't have to memorize it, have it, perform it by then. But then you can just use the music as a cue if you're using music. And then the other thing is playing with closing your eyes. All right, whether you're an instrumentalist, a singer, close your eyes a little bit in those weeks leading up to performing. That will activate your ears better, and it will also help you let go. All right. So then when you go out to perform, no matter what happens, remember that what you just did is an act that most people are not willing to do. All right? So give it a go. Focus on the music. Remember that what you're doing is a gift to other people. And just keep doing it. Because the world needs more of it. Okay? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Actually, yep. Can you run to the booth and make sure it's on? Do you know how to turn off this jacket? Okay, well, in the event that they're back there, it's fine. Alright. Looks like they're still moving. Yeah, they're bringing it up.